We love that.
I'm sorry. I
There's a hole in your face.
I didn't know the production element of this podcast was so intensive and so. Look, I can move the laptop until we and you are both the same size.
Well, that's good. I don't like it when you're bigger than me.
No, look, you went to university and you learnt about this shit, all right? I have not.
Yeah, I know.
I fix things and make things work for a living and help people.
I know. It's just because it's just funny because you have a hole.
I can't get rid of the hole. I don't care.
Okay, make your pun.
Yeah,
make your pun.
It's a Baker Mayfield thing because I believe in Baker Mayfield because I think everyone should. I've only just noticed that you started the podcast, and I don't know when that started.
Is that
I don't know how long I've been talking through.
Is that the whole thing? Is that the pun?
Yeah, that's the pun. It's Baker Mayfield woke up feeling dangerous, and I found a Top Gun thing that someone had edited, and I put it in.
It's not much of a pun.
Well, no, but it's like everyone's sleeping on the Browns. All these commentators and all this kind of stuff are saying the Browns are definitely not going to beat Kansas City. The Browns definitely aren't going to do this. The Browns definitely aren't going to do that. The Browns aren't going any further. And I want the Browns to know that they've got one broadcaster, albeit on a rather small podcast, that's in their corner.
Well, I'm sure Baker will be very happy to know that.
I think he watches this.
Right.
I mean, I have no evidence behind that. I've just said that. But
no, it's just a very it's a very baseless yet confident claim. Oh, there's a young lad walking down the street with a very large stick.
Okay, right. I'll go back to no.
It's taller than him.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
No, cool. I just. It looks like that young lad had a staff.
He was going to go and do some magic, was he?
I guess so. Trying to be Gandalf or something. Anyway, welcome to Better Luck Next Week. This is truly winging it because Gavin has. I mean, neither of us have any idea what we're going to talk about.
Well, that's because we had the argument before the podcast about the fact that you wouldn't start the podcast. We then had another argument. I forget what about.
And I'm still not. I put all this effort into looking good, and it's still not working because I have this horrid wing off the side of my face.
Know. I've lost all conceivable thought of what's going on with the stuff on my head.
Your background is different, though. There's things in it.
Yes, there is, because I felt like this was my attempt at professionalism, because my last week, obviously, Belle was in the kitchen doing stuff, and my audio had my dinner being made. So I've come in here to my actual office, which doesn't look like a broadcasting office because it's mostly full of machines and bits of broken things, which I have told myself I will fix at some point. And then you did the same thing you always did, which is the joke that you start the podcast without telling me that the podcast has started before we have the ability to have the conversation about what are we going to do in this podcast.
I mean, we did kind of do it yesterday, so I thought we could just go for it.
I've forgotten what we discussed yesterday.
That's okay. I haven't. Right. Cyril leaves Renault. That's the big F1 news.
Yeah, I mean...
And for me, I mean, they are relaunching as Alpine, so I guess this is like a full departure from the whole Renault label.
Well, so the thing is that the motorsport side of Renault has always been difficult. So they are not diversifying, but Alpine was originally a name of their kind of sporty, like, you know, how AMG have Mercedes and Porsche have RUF and all this kind of stuff. That was Alpine to them. They launched the Alpine company, which made the Alpine car, which has done tremendously well. And I don't think so. They haven't announced it yet, but obviously Le Mans has now come out with all these new rules, which are a lot more effectively. You can get the same worldwide exposure as Formula One, but instead of it costing you 120 million pounds a year, you can do it for about 12. So Alpine have already got a team at Le Mans. That team is going to move up into the higher category with a bit more funding. And it kind of makes sense to have all of your racing teams under one kind of corporate umbrella instead of one of them being Renault. Because I think because it was owned by Renault, well, it was Renault, there was a lot of things in the corporate structure that made it very difficult. I can kind of understand why they've got rid of Cyril, because he came into Renault at a point where they were really successful and hasn't really seemed to achieve anything. They've been a middling to not much team for the entirety of his tenure. And in the Daniel Ricciardo situation is frankly embarrassing to them, because you poached a driver from Red Bull. I mean, he was looking to go somewhere else. If you just fell down on your chair,
Don't worry about it.
Daniel Ricciardo wanted out of Red Bull, and Renault were the team for him to go for. That's fine, but and now this is rumored, because obviously I'm not the kind of person that gets to read Formula One contract. But Daniel Ricciardo had a stipulation in his contract that if he got an offer from a team that were above Renault in the Constructors' Championship, he was allowed to go. And there were performance incentives and all that kind of stuff. And basically the way it's been explained to me was that because Renault were behind McLaren had a driver opening, they offered the seat to Daniel Ricciardo. They now have Renault now have to pay Daniel Ricciardo for next year because he was on a 3-year contract. But because of the performance incentives and the kind of the legal jargon means that he can now leave. They have to pay him out of the rest of his contract, and he gets to go to another team and race against Renault. So it's just kind of been an embarrassment. I always got some weird vibes from Cyril. And maybe it's a way that they can start to go in a different direction, because the direction they've been going in hasn't worked. So,
wow, does this mean that Red Bull can get Renault engines again?
I think that I don't know. I don't know.
I've seen some comments asking if that would be the case on the particular post that the F1 made on their Instagram.
I don't know if the relationship was burnt between Renault. I don't know if the relationship was burnt between Red Bull and Renault, or between the two respective men. Either way, I don't think Red Bull. I don't think Red Bull can see their future in the sport without a manufacturer behind them. Because no matter what you do, you're buying an engine from someone else, and you're never going to win when you're buying an engine from someone else. It's just not going to happen. Sorry,
well, but I mean, we've discussed it before too. How much can Red Bull afford to invest in their own engine? Like, that's not really a long-term thing that they can afford to do, right? They've already kind of said that.
It's one of those things that if Red Bull were doing it, then they would be doing it totally under the guise of developing an engine for Formula One. It's not like when Aston Martin will now be doing it, where yes, they're developing an engine, but the information and the lessons that they learn from developing that engine will mean that the engines in their road car will be better. So it almost gets written off under the R&D budget. But I think, developing an engine for a Formula One car is the same cost as developing the rest of the car.
Yeah.
So, developing those engines, and then, okay, well, we've developed this engine, so let's put it in everything else we can put it in, would work. But you're going to develop an engine and then do what with it? Because you don't develop road cars. No one else is real. Who's going to buy an engine from Red Bull when they're relatively unproven? I mean, yeah, they'll be able to sell to Toro Rosso, but
that's not really much of a sale because it's your own
It's your
team.
own thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
The other thing, I guess, we'll just move on from that because I it looks like a whole entire rebrand and move forward for Renault, now Alpine, and I mean we'll see if it pans out for them. I guess you're seeming to hope that it will. So
Yeah, I
um,
mean, a lot of people look at Renault as this terrible Formula One team, but what you've got to realise is for a few years there, they were the number one. Like they are one of the teams that has put Ferrari in their place,
yeah.
and they did it, you know, quite conceivably. It wasn't something that happened overnight. It happened for a while, and Ferrari didn't have an answer to it.
So the calendar's been updated. They've moved Bahrain to start now. We're starting the season in Bahrain. Australia will now be in November. And the Imola track in Italy returns April 16th to 18th. And they're still trying to discuss with China whether or not they can go there and race in China, which I would assume would end up going into the race 3 slot, which is to be confirmed, announced, determined, whatever.
Yeah. I think you're going to see every single race outside of Europe is a difficult one because that relies on flying into a place. You know, relatively as much as it's difficult at the moment, you can travel across Europe. It's difficult and it takes a while, but you could conceivably get in a truck and drive the truck to the circuit.
Well,
Whereas,
and what would seemingly make sense then is, you know, why would you not do all of your European Grand Prix more so back to back so that you would avoid all of those costs, because you go from Spain and Monaco to Azerbaijan to Canada, back to France, Austria, United Kingdom, Hungary, Belgium, Netherlands, Italy,
yeah,
Russia. So like those are all drivable. But then you go to Japan, United States,
yeah.
Mexico, Brazil, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi. I mean, you're back all over the map again.
So you're operating under the pretense that they would, at the end of the weekend, pack everything up and drop.
Right. We've talked. I keep forgetting about this. We've talked about this. They have 2 different teams.
Yeah. Basically, everything's going to leapfrog. So the stuff that's in Australia will go to Vietnam, then the Netherlands, then Monaco, and then probably France. A lot, you know. It's not always clear where they are because there's so much freight that has to be moved.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, they need to work on that, but apparently they're carbon neutral somehow. Who the fuck knows how that happened?
Yeah, I don't think any major sports league team is carbon neutral. But anyways, I want to talk a little bit about the NHL because they kicked off on Wednesday, which is fun. Gavin, you can pull up the schedule if you'd like. I'll go over some of the things that have happened. I already talked yesterday or last week a bit about the whole waivers garbage. And guys keep getting claimed off waivers because teams are trying to put them on their taxi squad so that in case there's any COVID, they can bring in extra players. Well, you're supposed to have 3 goalies at any given time. So you have to have 1 goalie on your practice roster and 2 on your main roster. Yeah. But I just saw a goalie get claimed off waivers because one team was trying to put it on their practice roster. So it doesn't make sense to me that you would have that, like, because now I forget where Anton Forsberg was, but Winnipeg just claimed Anton Forsberg off waivers. I believe he was in Edmonton. I want to say that because they've been trying to make sure that players don't have to cross borders and stuff like that. Anyways, it doesn't make sense to me. Also, the fact that the taxi squad counts against the cap. Like, why wouldn't you just make that 0? Like, you have to carry extra. You have to have these extra players, and then you're also saying, oh, by the way, you have to fit these players under your cap somehow. Like, it's
I mean, I could understand if you'd gone, you have to fit them underneath the cap, but here's a 10 million extra on top of your cap.
yeah, no, the cap did not increase and is probably not going to increase for the next up to 5 years, apparently.
So you've added more people to the roster,
yeah,
and asked them to somehow find money somewhere.
Find money that wasn't
it seems
going to
to
be
me
there.
It seems to me the people that figure this stuff out, that go, okay, this is how we're going to do it, don't realize that the people that they're doing it to are, I don't want to say more knowledgeable, but these people are going to find a way to cheat.
Oh
so
yeah, there's always
there have already
loopholes
been
that you
ways
can
that
find,
these people
right?
found ways round.
Yeah, there's always a loophole that you can find, right?
Yeah. So if you know they're going to do it, just make it easy, or just operate with, because if you're close to your cap limit, which I don't think there's any team that goes into the league, that goes into the year and goes, yeah, we've got about 12 million cap space, but we're okay. No, they are all right up against it.
Generally, and the ones that the few that do that are often questioned. Like, why are you carrying $15 million of cap space right now when your team is, mediocre? Right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless you're a bottom feeding team, right? Like, if you're a rebuilder, you're probably going to keep that cap space maybe for, one of your future superstars that's going to want a $10 million contract in 2 years. You're going to go, okay, I'm going to just section that off now and make sure I don't spend that, because he's going to want that in 2 years' time. So I'm going to make sure I can keep a hold of him while adding other people, right?
Yeah. I get that, but still, there's not many teams that have got, let's say, what's the minimum salary in the NHL?
Certainly not this year. Minimum salary is $750,000.
So 7 times 750. So that's carry the 2, about £4.5 million. So what you're asking is that every team has £4.5 million.
Yeah, about 5 million. Just over 5 million.
I've worked 52.
So you were close. You were close.
Give me a break.
Yeah, you did it. I'm not getting at. Relax.
I was figuring it out. So you're asking every team to have £5.5 million to throw about.
Yeah. Now they're saying that, like, so it's not a full 5 million. As far as I know, they've been given a discount. So it's like only X percentage of these players' cap hits combined goes against the cap if they're on the taxi squad. So there are teams that are actually putting players that are earning like $5-6 million on their taxi squad, because they know that no team can claim them, because every team's up against the cap right now, while they can then circumvent the cap. You see, they're already cheating, like you just said.
I mean, it's got to be quite risky to put your £5 million a year player out on waivers, because everyone then gets a phone call that says this guy is out on waivers.
Right. Well, but then most teams look at their cap space and go, "Oh, I've only got $2 million. Can't have him."
Yeah, but still, but why wouldn't you turn around and say, okay, we know that you're going to have to bring in 5 more players. Here's £6 million in additional payroll. Don't take the piss.
Yeah.
Because if you say here's £6 million, it still counts to, here's a £6 million increase to your cap. They'll go, okay, well, we're going to have to hire 5 players whose overall amount of money accounts to £6 million. which you're probably going to go, well, when who are we going to add that's going to be within the we've got to get 5 guys. You almost have like a mini cap that goes, you can bring 5 guys in, but over those 5 guys, the limit's £6 million. Because then you're not going to bring in anyone world ending, but you're going to be able to bring in, 4 guys at £1 million a year, which will probably be all right. And then, 1 guy at 2 million if you need to bring in someone that's probably got a bit more value.
So if it were me, I would have just expanded the rosters entirely.
Yeah.
Because it's a 22-man roster. I would have expanded the roster to 26 men, let's say.
Yeah.
And then the cap is 81.5 million. Move the cap to 86 million.
Yeah.
Only because the roster's bigger. That's it.
Yeah.
And there's none of this waivers garbage. And the rule is you have to hit 26. You have to have 26 players, right? Yeah. So you have to. So
and
with
I
the
would
cap
say
that you have, you have to have 26 players.
I would say with the whole these players' distinct purpose is to replace players when they get COVID. I would say that one of them has to be a goalie.
Yeah, that is a rule.
Because if your 2 goalies get COVID, that are the 2 traveling goalies, which I suspect that because they're the only 2 goalies, probably spend quite a lot of time together, then you need a third. You need another guy. Yeah. And then it's the whole thing of, okay, well, because I know isn't there a rule you have to have 2 goalies dressed?
Yeah, one's always on the bench.
Yeah. So they then kind of bring in the rule that, okay, if you haven't got the ability to dress 2 goalies, you can dress a existing player as a goalie. So, okay, your 2 goalies have got COVID and you lose someone on your 4th line who's sat in a goalie thing. And if your goalie that's out there at the moment gets injured and you have to put in a player at goalie, that's just how that has to happen. That's unfortunate. It's going to suck for that guy. He's going to have a bad night, but...
Well, and it did happen against the Leafs when they played the Carolina Hurricanes last year, because both the Carolina Hurricanes goaltenders got injured. They had to call in the 42-year-old Zamboni driver to play for the Carolina Hurricanes, and they won.
That was the day of that guy's life.
It was. He went on Jimmy Fallon.
So wait, he was actually playing?
Yep.
How did the Leafs not score against a 42-year-old Zamboni driver?
Oh no, they did.
Yeah.
They just didn't score enough because the Hurricanes scored more because the Leafs were trash.
What was the Zamboni driver's save percentage? Because he must have saved something.
Well, he got the win. So the Leafs scored a goal, which made the winning goal for Carolina be scored when David Ayers was in the net, so therefore he got the win. So he actually won the game. The other 2 NHL goalies didn't get the win because they were both injured and the way the whole scoring lined up. But the Leafs were already losing when this guy went into the net, and so they scored and they started to come back, but then Carolina scored again because the Leafs were so bad last year.
I have a question. So technically, because they had to sign that guy to a contract, yeah?
No, because he was considered what's called an emergency backup goaltender.
But they must.
So every arena has an emergency backup goaltender who will play for whatever team needs them.
Wait, so if the Leafs had turned up without any goalies, we would have had the opposing side Zamboni driver?
If it was in Carolina, yeah.
That must be an interesting job for that guy.
Well, that's what happened. It was the Maple Leafs. It was in Toronto, and that was the Maple Leafs Zamboni driver who practices with the Marlies as well, the AHL team. And so he had to go into the net for the Hurricanes.
I bet he did want to win.
They made up a jersey for him and everything. Anyways, that's last year. Mm-hmm. We're moving on to this year. So I'll give you a little bit of a background. So there's 4 divisions now.
I'm looking at them now.
Yeah. There's the Canadian division, which the NHL was too chicken to call the Canadian division. They called it the North Division. Just call it the Canadian division, man. Who cares? Canadian division, Atlantic division, the Central division, which has 3 teams in it that are basically on the Atlantic Ocean.
I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing Central Division, East, West, North.
Yeah, sorry, East and West, but they should be called Atlantic and Pacific because that's what they used to be called.
Also, why isn't the Central Division called the South Division? Because that would make sense.
Because Detroit's in it.
I can't argue with that one. Made a valid point. Ended my entire argument. Well done.
But it's called the Central Division and includes the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are on the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, move on with your next point, please, my dear.
So the way the playoffs are going to work is the divisions, the top 4 teams in each division will play in a play down to pick the winner or the representative from each division, and then those 4 teams will play for the Stanley Cup.
Okay.
So it's a little different than last year, but it guarantees that a Canadian team will be in the Final 4, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
And that hasn't happened for a while.
Are you quite happy about that?
I mean, partially because, it's likely that one of the teams that I am more interested in is going to make it. One of, the Leafs, the Canucks, the Flames, maybe the Edmonton Oilers. But I mean, the way they played the Canucks, I don't know. The Oilers have 4 players on their team, and that's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Darnell Nurse. If one of those 4 guys gets injured, this team gets significantly worse.
Yeah.
Last night, McDavid and Draisaitl combined for 8 points in a 4-2 win. McDavid had 3 goals, 1 assist, and Draisaitl had 4 assists.
Yeah, if you lose those guys, you're going to have a bad day.
So anyways, what we could do, Gav, if you'd like, is we could go through each division.
Okay.
And pick the 4 teams that we think are going to make it through. And then we could either pick one team from each division that we think is going to go to the Final 4, or wait to do that later as we see the season develop. It depends on how wrong you want to be.
You know me, I love being wrong. It's what I spend most of my time doing.
That is fair.
I must also apologize, by the way, for this on my face. I got attacked by a...
Oh. That's okay. I think I've actually discovered the hole that we found at the beginning of the podcast is light reflection. Right? You've got 2 light beams from the lights coming down from the top of your from your ceiling. Okay.
One of them occasionally goes out. I don't know why. I don't really want to know.
All right. Do you have the 4 divisions up on your screen?
Yes. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start in the north or end in the north?
Why don't we end in the north, because that's where we are, and that's the fun part. Why don't we start with the east then? I'll call it the Atlantic Division, because I don't know why they changed the names, to be honest. Because in the normal alignment, you've got the Atlantic, the Metropolitan, the Central, and the Pacific divisions. And now they've gone Northeast, Central, West, which are super lame in comparison to Atlantic, Metropolitan, Central, and Pacific. So the Mass Mutual East Atlantic Division.
I thought we were doing the Central Division.
Yeah, we'll get there. Let's move it. We'll work our way across America and then hit Canada.
Okay.
Okay, so you have the Islanders, the Flyers, the Capitals, the Bruins, the Devils, the Sabres,
We're doing the East Division
the
now.
Penguins, and the Rangers. Yeah, that's the East,
Okay.
or the Atlantic Division, as I will call it. He's very concentrated while making these picks.
I'm thinking about it, man.
I know. I mean, do you want me to do mine first, or is that going to
No,
give
let
it
me
away for you?
Give me a minute.
Okay. I don't want to have a bunch of dead air, you see, while the cogs turn in your brain.
Look, mate, I was having to make decisions about things that I have no information on, which is a specialism of mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really the specialization of this podcast.
So I have gone quite New York heavy.
Okay.
So I have gone for the Boston Bruins,
Yep.
the New Jersey Devils,
Okay.
the Rangers. I've
Okay.
said the Rangers because I don't know where they're from.
New York.
Yeah. And the Islanders.
Okay. New Jersey was a bottom 5 team last year, but that's okay.
I think they're going to have a resurgence this year. Don't ask me what I've based that on, but I think they're going to have a good year.
I'm going with Boston, Philadelphia, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is a bit of a toss-up for me. I could go for any of Pittsburgh or either New York teams. And the reason is this. The Islanders are good. They have the best coach in the league. I'll give them that. But their team, you don't have any like, well, I guess Matt Barzal fits into that category as far as like star caliber talent. But they lost their goaltending. So their goaltending's gotten worse. Their defense has gotten worse. And their forward core hasn't got any better. It's just kind of the same. So I'm not sold on the Islanders. Pittsburgh's kind of the same, where they've gotten.
My thought on Pittsburgh is that Pittsburgh isn't having a great year for sport. So
it's fair.
As an area at the moment, I'm concerned.
Well, because everybody's getting older in Pittsburgh. Crosby, Malkin. Yeah. Their goaltending, I don't think, got any better either. They lost Matt Murray. And so they've gone with Tristan Jarry as their starter, which is, he's good. He's not spectacular, but he's good. And then the Rangers are exciting, but they need to figure it out. They've got a lot of young talent, but it's not, they announced that they were doing a rebuild 3-4 years ago. And so they've really been going through that. And now they're like, the curve is going up, right?
Yeah, I could. They're fucking hell. My brain fell out. Then did you see it?
Yeah, I just watched it flop out your ear there. Just
fell out and rolled across the floor.
Yeah. Did you want to go? Did you want to pick it up before you carry on?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. It's a Bluetooth signal.
Yeah. Let me just push the tooth back in. There we go. We're okay. There's a little Bluetooth joke for you there. I'm just looking at the West Division now.
I think I'm going to go with the Rangers as the fourth one. This is the sleeper pick in the East.
Okay. So in the West, I've
West now. Okay.
Yes, I've made my decision in the West based around there's a lot of teams in this division that don't play in places where there's a lot of ice.
Yes.
So I don't know who the Blues are. The Golden Knights are the Vegas team.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of ice in Vegas.
No.
The LA Kings. There's not a lot of ice in LA.
Not a lot of ice in California.
No, so I've got rid of those already. So I've gone for the Blues, the Wild, the Sharks, and the Coyotes.
Well, you know about Arizona, right?
Yeah, but I was kind of limited at that point, Jared.
Well, you know what Colorado is too, right?
Yes, but Colorado, it snows in Colorado.
Right, which would mean that there's ice in Colorado.
Yes, so that's okay.
But you
That's why
didn't pick them.
No. Because I was making... Why are you pulling me up on this?
I'm just saying, you've already poked a massive hole in your logic.
You told me to pick 4 teams. I made some witty banter about the fact that I'm not going to pick the 2 teams from the places that are known for sunshine. I told you I don't know who the Blues are. I don't know who the Wild are. I don't know who the Sharks are. And I don't know who the Ducks or the Avalanche are. The Coyotes have got a cool logo. The Blues, just cool. They were good at lacrosse.
They're from St. Louis.
Yeah, snow in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And the Wild, I've got to be honest, I thought it was the Minnesota Wild.
It is.
And I thought a lot of snow in Minnesota.
It's fair.
And imagine how happy they'll be.
That's the funny logo that I showed you. That is the bear.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
That came into my decision-making process.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm actually struggling with the 4th team. So I'm
gonna find teams from the Drone Racing League and make you pick them because that's something you have no knowledge of. And then I'll give you shit being like, oh, you picked them? Dumbass.
You have some knowledge of hockey. Come on.
I mean, yeah, but not as much as you.
It was fair. I'm going with Vegas, St. Louis, Colorado, and I'm struggling with the 4th team again because the rest of this division is either mediocre or trash. All 3 California teams were part of the 6 teams that did not make the play-in round last year.
I mean, how much of it, like, I'm trying to say this in a nice way. How much of a draw is there in California to watch hockey?
Well, LA built a franchise because they acquired Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, but...
I mean, it's Wayne Gretzky, Gav. They built a fan base because they got Wayne Gretzky.
Okay, but if I'm in Toronto...
Yeah.
Or Minnesota and there's a lot of snow around and I've grown up my entire childhood with people making ice rinks and I've skated since I could walk, I'm probably interested in hockey. There's a target market there. If I grew up in California, where the lowest the temperature gets is 23 degrees, which is considered a nice sunny day in the UK.
Yes.
I have either been playing American football or some other sunshine-based sport. I have probably, unless my parents have moved from an area where there was snow, I've probably never considered hockey.
Well, and that's what they've tried to do to build what am I talking? Grow the sport in places where it wouldn't normally be.
The Golden Knights.
Before you get upset about that, let's move on to the Central Division.
I wasn't finished.
What?
Wasn't finished.
With what?
My rant, my annoyance.
Yeah, I know, and we've all heard it before though. So we're just gonna move on now. And we're going to talk about the Central...
On behalf of the entire podcast, we're fed up of your shit, Gavin. Move on.
Yes. Okay. We're moving on to the Central/Atlantic Division.
Okay. I have gone Red Wings, Stars, Lightning, and Hurricanes.
You've done pretty well there, actually.
Yeah. I knew the names and I knew of all these teams. And if I'm honest, if a team isn't doing well, I'm probably not going to know about it. But if they're doing well, I'll probably be like, yeah, okay, cool. I know of your team.
So Tampa won the Stanley Cup last year. against the Dallas Stars. So you've done well there. And Carolina has a good, solid, promising team. Now Detroit got the fourth overall pick last year.
Okay. Well,
in the draft.
Always nice.
So they were not very good. Again, I'm struggling with the fourth team here because Nashville is good but not great. Florida has improved, but they're still not great, and they've had to delay the start of their games because of COVID. And Columbus, it just seems like a horrible situation in Columbus because their star player, Pierre-Luc Dubois, wants out because their head coach is being too much of a prick to him. And that's John Tortorella, who's known for being a little bit prickly at the best of times.
Want to be prickly to his best player, maybe?
Yeah, but
wants rid of said player.
That is John Tortorella. So, anyways, I don't think it's going to be a very good year for Columbus. I think they're going to have a hard time, and that's partially because, John Tortorella is going to be all upset that his star player doesn't want to be there, and his star player, who doesn't want to be there, is going to sit there and go, "Well, I don't really feel like playing for this coach because I think he's an ass." So, don't think it's going to be a fun time in Columbus. I guess I'm going to go with Nashville because I just never believe that the Florida Panthers are going to do anything of note.
Do I have to pick 4 teams in the North?
Pardon?
Do I have to pick 4 teams in the North as well because there's less teams?
Yeah, still 4 teams. But yeah, there's only 7 Canadian teams, but still 4 of them get through to the Canadian playoffs.
Okay, I have decided.
Go ahead.
I have gone for the Leafs.
Yep.
The Canucks.
Yep.
The Jets. I don't know where they're from. Where are the Jets from?
Winnipeg.
And the Oilers.
I'm going with Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal. I think Montreal significantly improved themselves. Maybe not as much as some other folks think, but I think the way they've improved themselves makes them a difficult team to play against. Again, they don't quite have that like star caliber talent. They have good players, but they have very gritty players as well. They've got increase the grit even more, which is why I think they're just going to be because again, these teams in these divisions, that's all they're playing.
Yeah.
So Toronto and Montreal are going to play 10 times, 9 now, because they just played the first game on Wednesday and the Leafs won in overtime. But each of these teams are going to see each other 9 to 10 times this season. I think Montreal's going to be a real problem the further down the line they get with some of these teams.
Yeah,
because of how annoying they're going to be on the ice, I think.
Yes, I can agree with that. I mean, because the problem is with this kind of season is having one good player, even if they are a really good player that's notorious for not getting injured. That doesn't matter to COVID. I mean, I don't know how many games would they play in a 2-week stretch?
Well, it's going to be every other night, basically, because they're playing 56 games and they want to have the Stanley Cup be awarded by July.
Yeah, so, I mean, you could lose a really good player for at least 8 games. And that, I mean, if you lose all 8 of those games, that's a deficit that's going to hang around your neck. So, yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about with, the Oilers. If they lose Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, or one of them for, 5 to 8 games.
I mean, if those guys are putting up 8 points, mathematically, if you lose one of them, and now I know this isn't how this works, but mathematically, if you lose one of them, you're down to 4 points a game. you've lost 50% of their output.
Yeah, you've lost 50% of your offense. And last year, Connor McDavid was involved in, I think it was 67% of the entire Edmonton Oilers offense for the
So
whole season.
if you lose him, you lose 67% over 8 games. Is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good.
No, it's not.
Really not good.
So we'll leave it at that, I think, because we do need to move on to the NFL.
Yes. So,
and this is where you see now you get your knowledge back.
thank you.
I've already been wrong twice.
Do you want me to go through this because I have your picks in front of me?
Yes, you might as
So
well.
starting off, we both picked the Bills.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't. No team in the playoffs is going to get blown out. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. They've made it this far for a reason. The Bills just outplayed.
This was a complete game for the Bills. Yeah. Outcoached, outplayed in every way. Yeah. The Colts.
I mean, the Colts put on an incredible game, but at the end of the day, there was just nothing. There was nothing that anyone could do about that connection between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. He went 6 for 128. They couldn't stop him.
Right. And not only was it like, it's not like he was being targeted that much, but when he got the ball, it was the perfect play every time.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't all the time he was getting some. It was every now and again when they needed something. Like there was one that I think it's got to be called out where Josh Allen is running to the sideline. Stephon Diggs just breaks in, gets separation, and Josh just gets it to him. Does what he needs to do, and it just works. The Bills move on. I think that the Bills are going to be a team for the next couple of years because they're not overspending. So
truly.
I think,
yeah, truly, and that's finally what Buffalo deserves and what Buffalo's needed for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the next one's kind of, it's sad because the Seahawks, they've kind of flipped themselves. So the Seahawks are a very good team, but defensively, there's just holes. I mean, there's holes on the defensive side of the ball and there's holes on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive line was not getting to Jared Goff at all. They just weren't getting there.
And this was not a good game for Russell Wilson either. Remember in the first half of the season when we were talking about how Russell Wilson might be an MVP candidate?
Yeah, but
what happened?
I would argue, Jared, that this game, it's not a good game for him numbers wise, but the problem is there is only so much a man can do when the number one defensive line player in the league, and Aaron Donald, is coming through the line every single play.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson did not have any time in this game. I don't think there were that many sacks, but the pressure was there every single time. He didn't have time to let plays develop. He didn't have time to think about things. It was, I've dropped back to pass. Aaron Donald is in my face.
Yeah. He only had 27 pass attempts. 27.
That's not,
for an entire game.
Yeah, that's not a lot for a team like that. They need
prayers to John Wolford. Hopefully that man is okay.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen a whole lot of updates other than that he's in stable condition.
Yeah, that's.
But that was nasty. So hopefully he's okay. Props to Goff for coming in and filling the role with a broken thumb.
Yeah, I mean, for someone with a broken thumb, he did very well.
19 pass attempts with a broken thumb. I mean,
yeah.
So I don't give them a whole lot of chance after this, But I mean, good for them for getting it. They're getting through.
I think really in reality, so you had the Seahawks,
Yeah.
I had the Rams. The next one was, I don't want to say it was decisive. I think Hineke coming into the game and doing his best. I honestly think Washington should just go, let's just try with this guy.
Here's some money. Will you be
Here's some money.
ours?
Because he put this team on his back.
Yeah, this was
mean-
he had the best quarterback performance of the weekend, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Because no one else was overly interesting.
No.
You know, maybe Josh Allen, but otherwise, like Brady was underwhelming in this game, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it wasn't his best game.
He was just over 50% in throwing. Like, that's not good for Tom Brady. He still hit 381 yards, but 50, what is it? 22 for 40. That's what, 54%?
It's not what you would expect from Tom Brady in the postseason.
No.
But then if you think about it, he was against a Washington team with a guy. Is Taylor even the backup?
He would be the backup, yeah.
Yeah. So
to Alex Smith, I guess.
A backup
they truly don't really have a starting quarterback.
No.
I'm hoping that Hineke becomes that because
yes, but because you in a game against Tom Brady, you went 26 for 44 for 306.
Mm-hmm. And those weren't easy passes to make for him either because the Bucs were putting pressure on him.
Yeah.
So
I mean, overall, this was a good game for the Bucs. We both picked the Bucs, but it was Washington weren't a winning team coming into this game, and they were playing a Buccaneers team that has been well put together for quite a few years, just hasn't had the right guy throwing the ball.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what happens when Tom actually turns it on, because I don't think we've seen that yet. Because we haven't seen him have to really push it, because he's got multiple guys that are getting great yardage. So he's not having to pull stuff out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know? The next one, I had the Ravens. You had the Titans, mate.
I did. Yeah. Those are so this is the other game that I got, that I lost. And I really thought Ryan Tannehill was going to play better than this. And I really thought that the Titans defense was going to be better than this, but obviously they just have no understanding of how to defend a run game, because Lamar Jackson ran for almost as many yards as he threw, for God's sake. And then the only guy that he threw to was Marquise Brown, 7 catches for 109 yards. Like their offense on the Ravens went through essentially 2 guys, Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown, and they had no answer for it.
I mean, so I watched this game, and it was just the Titans were. You saw that the Titans had a game plan in mind, and that game plan involved running the football.
And they
couldn't do it. You were watching the running back's names escaped me. You were watching Derrick Henry run to the line and then just get hit. And that was what the Ravens did. They loaded the box every single time, and they went, okay, if this is how they turned around to Tennessee and went, you can have what you want throwing it, because we know that we can outscore you if you have to throw.
And they didn't even take the throws, to be honest.
It wasn't like Ryan Tannehill. For me to kind of get behind the Titans, I needed Ryan Tannehill to go, okay, you're going to let me throw it? Cool. Watch this. And put up some points.
And he didn't do that.
I mean, even then, it wasn't miles away. They were only down by 1 score. But, yeah. So next one is my first loss. I picked the Bears. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, because you hate Drew Brees. That's why you picked the Bears.
That's why. Thank you. Um,
I'm sorry. The Bears had no chance. They never had a chance in this game. The Saints, while not the strongest team to move on,
mhm.
are just better than the 8 and 9 Bears. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't.
They're not a good team. Mitch Trubisky is not a good quarterback, and they keep running the same thing. It's like, what is the definition of insanity?
Yeah, I
You
mean, he
keep
went
trying the
no.
same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. David
There's,
Montgomery ran for 31 yards. Like they had nothing going. Nothing.
there there needs to be an element of teams understanding that at a certain point they have to pivot. Like if in the first quarter something's not working, change what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. But teams don't want to do that. They're like, oh well, we're a run team. We're going to run.
Oh,
Someone, huh?
you brought it back for the because Baker Mayfield and the
Michael Mayfield.
Cleveland Browns. Well, truly, this
lost
was
an
the
arm
most
while I-
embarrassing game of the season for the Steelers. You can talk about all the other losses that they had leading up to this. First of all, this team went 1-5 in their last 6 games, which is trash. But the like, what are you doing? You give up a terrible snap on the second play of the game?
The if I'm honest, the thing that disappoints me about the Browns in this game, one they won, and we have to give congratulations because this was a win. But you went 28 points down in the first quarter.
The Steelers, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, the Steelers. And then, okay, yeah, the Browns let Pittsburgh come back a bit, but it wasn't by much. You know,
And Roethlisberger, you can say what you want. I mean, the guy threw 68 pass attempts and for 501 yards and 4 touchdowns.
yeah, but
That was the second half.
they tried exactly the same thing that they tried the week before.
Yeah.
They went, okay, Browns have got a weakness at corner. Let's throw that way. And obviously, the Browns had sat down and gone after that last week's game. We've got a weakness at corner. Let's strengthen that a bit.
Yeah.
Because he went 501, 4-4.
4 interceptions. Yeah.
Gave up the ball 4 times.
Yeah. And it's not like it, I would say, I mean, again, it's not like Ben Roethlisberger played poorly. Personally, no. I think some of these passes just went right through his receiver's hands. Yeah. Like Buddy jumps up to catch the ball and it just phew. Well, what the hell? What was that?
I look at this game from a stats point of view, which I know is not my purpose. But if you look down, the Steelers had more total yards, more passing yards, less rushing yards, and more yards per play. So, I mean,
that all comes from the second half, but
yeah, they turned it on in the second half, but it wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Browns
were garbage in the first half.
I mean, I don't understand. How did you that snap? That's the one part of this game that I can't pin on Big Ben because the ball went flying over his head, over.
And then, did you see him trying to run back after it? Oh my god! I think I can run faster than.
Yeah, there is. I think a lot of people are turning around and going, "Oh well, we should get rid of Big Ben." Da 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 da. And I'm like, a lot of people don't like him. I think you need to stop bringing in someone new. But I don't think you throw him away. I think the issue you have is that you're not a physical football team. You're physical at the wide receiver position. You've got some big wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pass the ball. But the problem is that when it comes down to it, playing a physical game of football, you're losing in in that way.
Yeah, I mean, in every other position as far as physicality goes.
Yeah, if this game had been Steelers-Titans, I think the Titans would have ruined them.
Yeah,
with playing this way. I will go through the brackets off camera because I got to figure that out.
Well, and the problem is that the Steelers went 1-5 going into this game. They were 1-4, whatever it was. They won one game leading up to this playoff. I mean, like they just fell off a cliff, and
I don't understand how.
yeah,
It was almost as if it was almost as if Washington somehow managed to beat you, which I think I'm still sat there going, how did Washington beat you? And then the golden it was almost
that was
as
the beginning of the end.
it was almost as if in Scooby-Doo when you take off the mask and go, oh, that's how they're doing it, and then everyone goes, oh, that's the end of it.
So we could look at next week. I mean, and we'll close that off by giving credit to the Browns for pulling out
first win in like how Steelers at home.
That is not going to happen in Kansas City. If they want to beat the Chiefs, they have to play a lot better than they did against the Steelers.
I can't argue with that. You to beat the Chiefs, you are going to need Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Baker Mayfield and that receiving core on their best day.
Well, the receiving core, I mean, I think the offense was pretty good. You know, you might have wanted a bit more out of Nick Chubb, but otherwise, you know, Landry 5 for 92, you know, so you might want a bit more from them, but really you need a lot more from your defensive core, because the way the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to come back in that game, I mean, the Chiefs are going to put up 50 on you if you play like that.
We'll talk about this once we've gone through the other games. But my concern, and I think it's something they've addressed, is the Browns, both of their starting cornerbacks are injured. And as in not coming back anytime soon, injured. So they are activating guys, signing guys to practice squads, bringing every guy in at cornerback that they can. And the problem is that you are going to face, in my opinion, the most difficult guy to cover in football. Because Tyreek Hill doesn't have to do what the likes of Odell do or these skilled guys. He's just going to sit on the outside and he's just going to run past you. And at some point, that's going to work, which is my concern. So either the Browns need to be smart and keep a safety deep the entire game so that he might take 40 on you, but he doesn't take it to the house. But yeah, so the first one is the Packers playing the Rams.
Goff is hurt. He's going to be playing hurt. I'm going Packers.
I mean, with a broken thumb, you're going to try and outthrow Aaron Rodgers.
Pissed off Aaron Rodgers.
A lot of people are putting this game down as the best wide, Aaron, the best wide receiver in the game against the best cornerback in the game. I don't really think it's going to come down to that, because even if they are able to take Aaron's favorite receiver away from him, he's still got another entire receiving corps who they'll just throw to.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's going to really matter too much. I've gone for the Packers because they're a weak rested going up against an injured and decrepit and broken Rams team.
Yeah.
Which is my point. So
it's the Packers.
Packers.
The next game is the Bills and the Ravens. This is going
to be a good game.
Yeah, this might be the most even matchup. Might be.
Yeah.
The thing about it is that if the Bills put up the wall on the run game, then they'll run away with it.
That's the thing for me is if the Bills are a three-dimensional football team with some incredible safety and corner talent. If you take the run away from the Ravens, they're not stellar when you do that.
Yeah, so I've gone with the Bills for that reason.
I have gone with the Bills as well. The next one we're just going to disagree on.
Well, I'm taking the Chiefs.
I can understand why.
Yeah.
And I accept it.
And I think we've already discussed why.
One of my things is that the Chiefs have got the 18th ranked 18th ranked defense in stopping the run.
Mm.
So I think that Stefanski is going to lean on the run, and he's going to basically just, my idea of the play is you have Baker Mayfield in the center, and then you have Chubb, Hunt, and he just goes hut and just 50-50s it left or right.
Could work.
Because that works twofold. The more you run the ball and the more you run down the clock, the less time that you're going to give Patrick Mahomes, the Mahomes boy, the Master Chief, with the football, which the less time he has it in his hands, the less time he's destroying you. And it also means that they're not going to have any turnovers. If the Browns can do this game with no turnovers, and the running game is on another level, I'm talking 100+ yard games for both of those two guys, then I think you could see something. I think there could be an upset here.
Next year for the Browns.
Oh, well, I think next year they're going to have Odell back, which I think now that Baker is happy with this offensive scheme, he can find a way that Odell's going to work in it. And they'll have a draft pick. I don't know what they're going to do with it. They're going to have a draft pick.
So I've gone with the Chiefs. You've gone with the Browns.
Yes.
And then the fourth game, I think we're going with
the shooting match.
I think we're going with the same pick, but for different reasons. I simply do not think the Saints are a good enough team around Drew Brees to make this work, which is unfortunate because I think this will be Drew Brees' last game.
Yeah, makes sense.
The man's 43 and he broke 18 ribs, 14 ribs.
Yeah, something like
earlier
that.
This year. I
Yep.
mean, like, if you're coming back next year after that, you might be a bit crazy.
I don't think he comes back. I think this to me is, we are both going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. I don't think that. I think if they're talking pub bollocks, Drew will always be able to turn around and go, "Oh, I beat you this, I beat you this time, da 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 da."
Yeah.
But Tom will always have the snapback of, "Well, yeah, you had you had the receiving core that you had, and I had Chris Hogan.
6 rings.
6 rings." But this is a Saints with a decent team around them, because as much as you say that they're not, there's still some talented wideouts there. There's some talented running there. There's some talented tight ends. And this is Tom going, okay, let's go toe to toe with equally talented teams, which I think both of these teams are, and let's see what we can do.
And I'm gonna give it to Tom. Oops.
Yeah, I have as well.
I'm probably a little more sad about it than you are. I think Breeze is great, and it's really sad that he's not been able to take the Saints to more championships.
But I feel that is a bed that he has made for himself.
I know you do.
Because if he took, let's say, for example, instead of 25 million a year, he takes 20 million a year. That's 5 million that they could spend on a wide receiver. And that's unfortunately, that's what makes the difference at the end of the day, because all these quarterbacks are taking massive money, and then the teams are going to go, where do you expect us to get the rest of the team from? So, yeah.
So that's that. Those are our 4.
Yeah.
This really doesn't change from, despite the 2 losses that I took, this doesn't change my final 4.
No.
Of Packers, Bills, Chiefs, and Bucks.
Yeah, the only thing I change it. So who would that end up in? Packers play Bills, Browns play Bucks?
No, because the Packers
Browns,
and the Browns are in the opposite conference, right?
Yeah.
So
sorry, my apologies.
It's Packers, Bucks, Bills, Chiefs, or Browns, Chiefs. Or sorry, Browns, Bills.
So Packers, Bucks
Yeah.
is another one on Tom Brady's revenge tour of I'm going to work through every quarterback who's been considered to be better than me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to prove they're not. Because then there's not the argument. Because then everyone goes, oh well, Aaron Rodgers is better than Tom Brady. Well, no, because he beat him. There we go. Bills Browns for me is an interesting one because I don't know. But we'll find out. I hope.
Right. I think my picks still stand because it'll be Packers Bucks, and I've gone with the Packers. I think the Packers are just a slightly better team, and I think Brady, they'll have played one more game than the Packers. They'll be a little more beaten up than the Packers. And Aaron, this is getting towards both of these quarterbacks' last hurrah.
I don't know about Aaron, but he does play the game a bit more.
Yeah. Aaron's probably not going to last till 41 or 43, whatever it is.
He plays a different game.
Yeah.
If that
but I've given it to Aaron, and then Bills Chiefs, it'll be the Chiefs. So, again, the safe pick, but it's the 1-2 seeds in the league for me. But I think that wraps it up rather nicely. We don't have any game again this week because we did a bunch of NHL talk, and we'll dabble in some hockey now and then. But I think we'll be mainly focused on the NFL playoffs as those come to a close by the beginning of February. And there won't be any F1 in February. So I'm thinking February is going to be a nice quiz month.
Yeah.
We can get Belle a bit more involved. Design a few more quizzes for us, perhaps.
Let's get quizzical. Speaking of Belle, she's just yelled and said, my dinner's ready.
What perfect timing.
Yeah.
We wish all the losers better luck next week. You're interrupting my outro, Gavin.
And you don't inform me of this stuff. You just do it.
Yeah, because I have the thing that I say.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do it?
Yes. Okay. Wish all the losers better luck next week, especially us two, because both of us have probably picked wrong in at least one thing. And otherwise, I'm gonna go let Gavin play with his toys and eat some food.
Bye.